Hello, Music Theory 1 students. This is the third and final video for our in-class video. I guess it's not in class, it's our video class for this week for November the 10th. Where I left off in the last video, we were talking about the different voice leading. So we actually ended up here for that final cadence. So you should know how to do a 5-to-1 close now that you first learned in chapter 8. I'm going to add on to that today because we're going to end by completing an outer voice framework, which means that we pretty much know what chords we're going to use now, because our soprano and our bass has, once you know what your soprano and your bass is, you know what the chords have to be, and I'll talk about that in a bit. But we have our predominant. So at a final cadence now, so in chapter 8, it was just 2 beats. Okay, so we would have just worried about our final cadence on these last 2 beats. In chapter 12, you learn that the cadence becomes more of an event. So we pull in the 3rd to last beat, sometimes the 4th to last beat, and the 5th to last beat. So what I'm going to be doing is showing you 2 cadences where you have 5 beats that are all part of the cadence. Okay, so that's what we're going to do for the analysis / we're going to also add the inner voices. And this is a very exceptional cadence that I am going to talk about. But I'm going to start by going on to Artusi to show you sort of these 3 beat cadential events. You're going to have to do a lot of these, and I know it might feel like the online practice is a bit more this week in week 9, but it's because I want you to try a bunch of these cadence. It's really, really important that you get the voice leading right, and Artusi is honestly the perfect place for it. Now, when you're doing your final cadences, you're going to have a bunch of options, because the 5 chord can be a 5 or a 5-7. And then, as you saw, there's 5 different options for a 2-1 cadence and 4 different options for a 7-8 cadence. So you have all those options. And then you have a bunch of options for your predominant chords or your cadential predominant chords, right? You can use 2, 4, and 6, but even if you have a scale degree 2, there's more than one option for that. In Artusi, I have to give a chord. So I basically am making a choice for you. But when you have when you just are given a soprano, you have a bunch more options and you have to make choices. And that's why each person's assignment is going to be unique in this way, because you have a choice on every single note that you're going to. So I first wanted to remind you that at a cadence, we're looking at these dark green. So when you're in major, it's 2, 4, and 6 that are allowed. And in minor, it's 2, 4, and 6 that are allowed as your pre-cadential dominant chords. So your pre-cadential chords, or your predominant chords at the cadence, is maybe a better way to say that. You don't have really very many options for the 5 chord. It's either 5 or 5-7, but it's still 2 options, 5 or 5-7. And of course, you're changing the dominant to make it a chord of dominant function. So that's what I wanted to start with. So it's 2, 4, or 6. There's also the possibility of using a dominant extension. So for those final 3 beats, you could go 5 to 5-7. And if you have an 8-7-8 or a 3-2-1 cadence, you can use a chord called the Cadential 6-4, which is a hotly debated chord in tonal music circles, people who study Western art music and tonal music in particular. So I'm going to use Artusi to talk about the Cadential 6-4 chord. Mostly because, so first in Artusi, I've created an assignment that's called In Class 9. And I had the 9s there just to indicate week 9, but it's in class. And it means that yours, if you log into that, like don't complete this is not online practice, but this means that you can follow along with me in the video. And it should be exactly the same as what you see here. That's the hope anyways. So just so you know, when you're doing this, I do have in online practice, I want you to practice creating chords. So just creating 1 and 5 chords. Notice there's no key signature. So when it says 1 in C minor, you need to make sure you're putting in the accidentals that would be there in the key signature, right? So in C minor, that has 3 flats in the key signature. So this is C, oh, this is C, E flat, G, okay? So for all of these, you just have to make sure you're thinking in the right key. And of course, 5, and that's an uppercase 5. So in Artusi, they use uppercase and lowercase. So you do need to know that Horton and Ritchie only use uppercase, but it means something in minor. 5 in C minor. And of course, I'm only using dominant function chords here, but in C minor, we start on a G. So then the 5 chord would be G, and it'll be B natural. Without any key signature here, then it's already natural. So you don't have to add that. So it's G, B, and D. Okay, so you're just having to be aware of the key signature every time you're doing that. So I wanted to make sure we talked about that. Then I have a section where you're reviewing the 2, 4, and 6 chords in each key, because these are our predominant chords that we use at the cadence, so our cadential predominant chords. And then I have just the basic chord progressions. This is where the soprano has 2, 1, or 7, 8. This is just review of chapter 8, okay? You can also use 2, 3, 2, 1, 5, 5, or 5, 3. And so I would stick to those for the moment. I think I've allowed a sprung scale degree 7, which means you might be able to do 7 to 5 in an inner voice if the soprano is going 2, 1. But it might, I guess I could just try one right now. No, I don't have the time for it. So if it's giving you a mistake, then just make sure 7 goes to 8. So often, yeah, often those are the 2. I do have options for that in Artusi. I know that in this one, I think I do allow a sprung scale degree 7. Okay, so when I have final cadences and I show 4, 4, 4, 2, 1, this means that I'm telling you exactly what the soprano should be. So you don't even have to look at the chord progression I've put down here yet. You can just say, okay, soprano is going to be 4, 2, 1, and you're given the bass, because your figured your chord progression. So I'm giving you Roman numerals with the figured bass. Okay, and in this case, and you've probably seen this before, in Horton and Ritchie, I'd really like you to see this 6 up here, but instead it has to be kind of hooked in with it's just how Artusi works. So I have to show it as 2 diminished 6 as a subscript there. Or superscript, I think is the proper term for that. Okay, so 4, 2, 1. What I want to show, so we're going to do one of these, but I'm going to do it with the cadential 6, 4. So now let's find the cadential 6, 4. So these are PDDT. That means it's 2, 4, 6, 5, 1 for any of those. Here's the 5 to 5, 7 extension. All that means, and it gives you the options for the soprano, and there's a bunch. So here you can just choose one of those and then work it out. But the bass is always going to be a 5 triad, going to a 5, 7, going to a 1. This means you can now have repeated notes in the bass. So for the 5 to 5, 7, maybe I should just do one of these. So I like to start at the bass first, at the end and at the bass first. So E flat is our key, B flat is our 5. And if we're doing 2 5 chords in a row, it means that we now have repeated notes in the bass. I'm just going to choose one of these. So 7, 9, 8. So let's do that one, 7, 9, 8. So the soprano will be low. So 7, and we're in E flat major, so that's D. Okay, so there's 7, 9, 8. Now I just need to fill in the inner voices. So alto, let's do tenor. Well, let's do alto first because it's so close to the soprano. So I need a B flat, D, and an F here. Let's have the alto on a B flat, so it's doubling the bass. Okay, and then the tenor, so B flat, we have 2 B flats, D, and I need an F, so my so I get scale degree 2 in there. Now we have to make sure we're going to a 5/7. We have to make sure we have all 5 notes of the chord. Okay, so I have a B flat and I have an F. I need a D. So I am going to have the tenor go down to a D. Okay, so B flat, D, and I have an F, and now I need an A. So that scaled, that B flat, which is on scale degree 5, it can very nicely go down to 4. Okay, so now I have B flat, D, F, and A. A flat, B flat, D, F, A flat. And now my 4, we need to resolve everything properly. So scale degree 4 needs to resolve to 3. Okay, and my scale degree 7 can go up to 8, and that would be totally allowed. Or now that you know, it can go down to 5. And so I'm going to have this one go down to 5 and have a full chord there. And let's see if this works. This is what I wanted to check. One note is out of range. That might be the tenor. Unless it's the alto, but let's just check. So my checking of the 7 to 5 didn't work because my tenor voice was out of range. Okay, so there's your 5 to 5/7 extension. Let's try this with the Cadential 6/4. It's just a bit annoying that E flat major means everything is a bit low. I guess I could have moved everything up an octave, but let's go to the next example. So here, final cadence with the Cadential 6/4 to the dominant to the tonic. So there's 2 ways to talk about this 6/4 chord. In the Horton and Ritchie textbook, they always talk about it as a Cadential 6/4. And in fact, when you do your analysis, you need to put a Roman numeral 5 under what we will call a little C6/4. And I'm going to do this when we do the analysis, so you can see that. But it is actually the notes of a tonic triad. So it's the tonic triad in second inversion. But maybe you don't think about that so much. I mean, when I learned it, I don't think I even knew that it was the notes of the tonic triad, because you can do this completely by voice leading. Okay, and so I'll let you know what I mean. I'm going to do a 3-2-1 here. So we're in the key of C. Oh, this is easy. So my soprano, our 2 options are 3-2-1 or 8-7-8. If you have a 3-2-1, it really is the only option for you to do a Cadential 6/4. You will rarely, there isn't really any other voices you can use for that, for this 3-2-1, because this a 6 chord is the one that has scale degree 3 in it, but we can only use 6 in root position as our cadential predominant chord, and it creates parallel fifths then between the outer voices. So you really, if you see a 3-2-1 close, you should just think, hey, Cadential 6/4, 5-1. In this case, we're going to a 5/7. So this is going to show you all the voice leading fun. Okay, so my bass, that's the next thing I like to do. So scale degree 1, and to give us enough space in the inner voices, I'm going to go 5 to 8. And now voice leading of the Cadential 6/4. The bass note is on scale degree 5. Okay, so again, like the 5 to 5/7 extension, you have a repeated note in the bass. You can do an octave skip. Maybe I'll do that so I can show you that. So you can do an octave skip, which is kind of fun with that, or you can just keep them on the same note. I'll leave it like that and see if we have any issues here. Now, alto and tenor. One of the voices needs to be a fourth above. One of the upper voices a fourth above, and another of the upper voices a sixth above. 6/4 means there's a fourth above the bass and a sixth above the bass, and the final voice is an octave or more, an octave or a double octave above the bass. Or actually, it could even be a unison in this case. So let's see, what do we have already? The soprano is on an E. The E is a sixth above the bass. So now we need a fourth above the bass. Okay, so if we're going to do a fourth above the bass, let's have that in the alto. Okay, and then you're actually going to be able to see this, and then our tenor will be up high too. So now I have the 6th above the bass and the 4th above the bass. I need the tenor to be an octave above the bass. C, E, G. Hopefully that isn't too high for the tenor. Our other option is to switch the two inner voices, which I might have to do because that. Anyways, let's try that. Tenor. And then how this resolves is the 6th above the bass resolves down. The 4th above the bass resolves down. Okay, so now that's resolving to scale degree 7. This is scale degree 3, which resolves to scale degree 2. This is scale degree 1, so that's our tonic, which goes down to scale degree 7. So our leading tone in minor, it would have to go to a raised scale degree 7. And then our tenor, in this case, which has scale degree 5, will either stay on scale degree 5 if it's going to a 5 triad. In this case, we're going to a 5/7. So it's going to go down to scale degree 4. Okay, and you'll notice that between the G, so we're going parallel 6s, okay, in there, and we have parallel 4ths. So all of the voices are moving in the same direction. This is how the cadential 6/4 resolves to a 5/7. And if you're going to a 5/7, you know you're not going to have any parallel 5ths because you have 4 voices in this case. And the bass is moving in oblique. Yes, it's leaping an octave, but it's moving in oblique motion. And now we have our resolution here. So our alto, because it's scale degree 7, can fall to 5. And we'll see if that works. And our scale degree 4 in the tenor now, right? Because it's going to the chordal 7th, G, B, D, that's an F. The F moves to E. And now I have a full triad here. So let me check this. Okay, so there's your cadential 6/4, and hopefully that gives you the understanding of what that is. If you were in minor, these are both in major, so that's just how it is. But there's also possibilities for minor. These are randomly selected, so you might get 2 minor ones. And just note that in minor, you might see a major 1 here. That means I'm asking for the Picardy 3rd. Okay, so it means that you do have to raise the 3rd if you're in a minor key and you see a major 1. Okay, again, how Artusi and the Horton and Ritchie textbook are different. So hopefully that makes sense for the cadential 6/4. Now I'm going to work on our example, and this is going to be our example for analysis and what we would have worked on in class. I want to highlight page 223 of your textbook, and it looks like this. Hopefully you can see this in the camera. It shows you there's 6 different ways you can use ways that you approach your cadence. So you might have a 4-2-1 cadence. And this is just looking at the final 3 notes. This one, and let's actually put this in here. This is a 2. This is a scale degree 2 to scale degree 2, 1 close, okay? All right, now I am actually gonna, because this is a 5-note cadence, then I'm gonna talk about these 2. But in your Horton and Ritchie textbook, if you look at page 223, it gives you 6 options. So if soprano is going 4-2-1, or 2-2-1 as we have here, or 1-2-1, or 9-7-8, or 8-7-8, or 6-7-8, it shows you all the possible pre-cadential dominant chords you can use. And don't just, it shows you the pre-cadential chords that you can use. Then if you apply them, you have to make sure the voice leading works. Okay, so don't just take the suggested, they have little black notes for the inner voices. It will depend on where you're coming from, whether to use it. I had a student that completely scared me because She said the textbook shows this, and she had taken one of the potential options for those middle inner voices and put it right against there, and there was parallel fifths. And I was like, oh, how is the textbook showing parallel fifths? And it's just because they're showing the other two notes without thinking about the voice leading, because it's just showing you the chords without them being directly in an example. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so that is super helpful if you're going to have a predominant chord here. Of course, it doesn't show the 3-2-1 because it talks about the 3-2-1 beforehand, and that's another possibility. That's then you use the cadential 6/4 chord, which is why I started with that beforehand. Okay, so that's not here. They don't show the cadential 6/4 chord here, nor does it show the 5 to 5/7 extension. This chart is simply to show you the 2, the 4, and the 6. And the other thing it shows you, and I'm going to do it here, is that you can also now use a 2/7, but at the cadence, that's generally, we use that in first inversion. So it's a 2/6/5. I say a 2/6/5. So it's a seventh chord in first inversion. So there's a 6 above the bass and a 5th above the bass. And it's the scale degree 2, 4, 6, and 1. Okay, and those are the notes in a 2 chord with 4 different notes. So a 2/7 chord in first inversion. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Remember, once I'm back in person, ask me all these questions, because this is where things get super fun and super complicated. So, and at the final cadence, the first thing I'm going to do is let's identify the key. I haven't talked about this yet, but let's do the key. We're in G major. We're going to do G major first. This is scale degree 4. This is scale degree 3. Okay, and then we have 2-2-1. All right, now this is a bit of a weird one, and I'm telling, and we're doing this on purpose because it's a kind of an exceptional one. So I'm going to do it in the video. If you don't ever remember this again, and you don't decide you don't ever want to use this, then you don't have to. So there is this really interesting thing that can happen, and it's on page 225 of your textbook. You could decide that this is just the end of a prolongation. We haven't talked about prolongations yet, but you could just use this as the end of a prolongation. This is not how this is being used in this instance. This is a extended cadence, okay? So this is what's really interesting about this. If you ever see a place where you have 4 going to 3, going to 2, and then you have a 2-1 cadence, you can do this. And tonal music, and what you're going to learn once we get into prolongations, it's all about recognizing soprano patterns that tells you what you can then, what kinds of chords you can harmonize with. A lot of other theory textbooks don't talk about this, but the soprano tells you, because of the chord tones, it tells you what you can potentially do. And this pattern, this 4-3-2 going to 2-1 cadence, shows you this pattern. So we actually already know what these chords have to be because the bass has been given. We have an E here. This is a C. Remember, we can only use chords, predominant chords, in root position or first inversion. So this, we already know, is a 4 chord in first inversion. So I can already put that there. I can also already put my figured bass in here. Sorry, not my figured bass, my Roman numeral analysis. And at a cadence, you will see Roman numeral analysis directly under each note. Prolongations, you don't. That's going to be different for a lot of you. But at the cadence, it's like you apply a Roman numeral basically to each note, and an extension line if it's just simply the same chord twice. We'll do that more in class. I'm going to skip this one for a second because this is a special pattern. We know what this chord is. So this is an A and a C. So again, we have another first inversion chord. And we know that this chord is going to be a 2 chord. And in fact, this is going to be a 2-6-5 chord. Because Okay, and I'm doing the Horton-Ritchie. We're going to just do uppercase in this instance, so you can see how it looks for Horton-Ritchie. This is actually going to be a 2-6-5. So what I wanted you to notice, so at this point now we have a B and a D, and we're going to create this passing, this diatonic passing 6/4, and you're going to learn about another 6/4, but I'm introducing the more rare one right now. There is a 5-6/4 that we also call a passing 6/4, but this is what is going to be what we call a passing, and in MuseScore you can easily just add a P in front of it, and so it's a passing and then a P6/4. And this we can use as a predominant. So we're pairing the 4 and the 2 together. It's a great way, once we get into decoration, you can do it on a weak beat. And then we just simply put a line here. I don't always like these lines, but you want to put a line after the 4 because it's really just an extension. It's a way of moving that. And I'm not even going to talk, we don't put a Roman numeral under it. We just simply put a line from the 4 to the 2 because it's a way to extend this 4 to 2 pair. 2 and 4 are often used together in a predominant, and this is a way to link them through a passing 6/4. Okay. Let's get the notes. And then, of course, here we have a 5 chord, so I can just add the Roman numeral analysis. And then here we have our 1, and I will move those. Move these down. So what you want to see in your when you're doing your analysis is you want all the Roman numerals to be in line. So maybe we want these a little bit lower. But you want them all to be basically lined up at the same place. And then your figured bass has its own line. And then once we get to prolongation brackets, they will go kind of in between these two. So you want all the way along from the beginning to end, your Roman numerals in one line, your figured bass directly under the notes, and then any other kind of indications will be in between these two. Okay, so this is what this looks like. Notes. This is where it's really helpful for you to be thinking in terms of what notes are in every chord. So just like chapter 8, we fill them in. So we know this is C, E, and G. So then I can put, I can put here, we know we need C, E, and G. Okay, we already have the C and we already have the E, so we need a G. Let's put that in the alto. And here we could always just use all of them in one voice. It's maybe helpful to have voice 2 here because it's lower. So altos in G, and now you can see all the way along. And my tenor, oh, I guess I should move my bass into voice 2. And now my tenor is going to be voice 1. So I think it's often good to just, in this case, I'm just going to double the root, but you can remember, just like chapter 8, you can double any of the voices. It's just when we have a dominant function chord that we cannot double things. So we can't double this leading tone, scale degree 7, nor can we double scale degree 4, because those two. Now this is a passing 6/4. So we need a 4th above the bass and we need a 6th above the bass. We have the 6th above the bass. So the 4th above the bass is a G. Okay, so there's the G. And then we just have a doubling of something. So actually what one of the inner voices does, so this is the tenor. The tenor is going to go C, D, E. So there's our, so remember when we do tone exchanges, one of the voices is doing a tone exchange. So in this case, we have G, B, and D. And notice this is like our cadential 6/4. And this is why this works so well here, because it's a tonic in second inversion. It's a second inversion chord, a 6/4 chord is unstable. It's simply bringing these two together. So, and it looks a little bit like a cadential 6/4, but it's not functioning like a cadential 6/4. A cadential 6/4 has to go to a dominant chord. In this case, it's between two predominants. Okay, and that's why that works. And now this chord is A, C, E, and G. So the one voice that is missing, or that we need, is we need an E in this chord, okay, to create the seventh. So in this case then, oh no, we have the E. A, C, E, and G. Look at that. So what's missing is the G that is basically already there. Okay, so the soprano and the bass are in parallel thirds. The tenor is passing through a tone exchange, and the final voice is staying on the G, which is scale degree 1. And so this is a really cool way to approach your cadence if it works with the cantus that you're doing. Okay, so it's just something that I wanted you to know about. Now let's do our final cadence, which you have to know, and I'm going to end the video here. I will complete, just so that you have let me just complete this first, and then I'll talk about what I will do in minor too. So here, we need a D, an F sharp, and an A. We have the A. So I'm going to put the F sharp here. And my tenor, I could double the D if I wanted, but why don't I double the A? It does mean that it's leaping down, but it means then that my 2, so now I've doubled scale degree 2, my 2 can go to 3. Okay, and my alto, of course, there's so many, I'm thinking about all the different things I can do, but anyways, my 7 can go down to 5. Okay, and now I've completed that. And in the module for this, I will play both of these. I will turn these into sound files so that you can hear how these sound. Okay. So there is a analyzed and completed 5-beat final cadence. The real authentic cadence is like this here, but now our full cadential event is 5 beats. It might just be 2 sometimes, but this shows you the full 5. For this one, I wanted one in minor, so this one is in C minor. Okay, I guess you could just do lowercase m if you want there. And I'm just going to analyze this right now so that you can see. We have, let's do our scale degrees first. This is scale degree 4. This is scale degree 2. And then I'm gonna, oops. This is scale degree 1, or let's do 8, because we're going to 7. Okay, so 4, 2, 8, 7, 8. So notice this octave skip. So this is 2 in a row. We have 8, 7, 8. This means that this is a cadential 6, 4. Okay. This we know is at least a 5 triad. So we at least have, we at least have a natural sign. Why is that natural sign not working? There we go. That, or the other thing you might, this could also be, oops. This could also be, if you wanted, doing this wrong. This would also be a 5, 7. So your other option for this would be a 5, would have that as a 7 there, and then I need to get the natural underneath that, don't I? Okay, so it's either going to be natural sign, or so a raised scale degree 7, or a 5, 7 chord with the third above raised. So that's our figured bass there. Okay, so one or the other, and you'll have to choose, and I will choose and do the end for you. I also want you to show you, and I said I was going to do this, is when you're using a cadential 6/4, this is how we do the Roman numerals. I will finish these two chords too, but this is how you do the Roman numerals. Under this, we put 5. Yes, I know those are the chords, the notes of a tonic triad, but it's a tonic triad in second inversion, and it's really kind of like two. It's like two. We call them suspensions, and you'll learn about that in the last week of classes. But it's really moving to the 5. So this scale degree 5 really singles that we've moved to the dominant here. It's just taking the 2 voices above a little bit longer to get there. Okay. And then what we do here is we don't restate the 5. You simply put one of these lines that I get so annoyed in music score how they use them, but you just put one of these lines like this after the 5, and that just shows that the 5 is remaining for 2 beats. So we have a cadential 6/4 within the area of the dominant that moves to the actual dominant. And then of course we have 1 here. And if you wanted, you could make this a tierce or Picardy as well, but let me just add the Roman numerals. The Roman numeral, it's 1 Roman numeral. Okay, and if you wanted to make that a minor one, you could. If you want to show it as a minor one, I'm going to do the Horton-Ritchie way here. Now we can already figure out what these chords are going to be. These are going to be both pre-cadential dominant chords. So we have scale degree 4 there, and this is an A, okay, and this is an F. So in this case, we have F, A, so we already know that this is going to be a 4/6. We have a scale degree 2, that's a D and an F. So we already know that this is going to also be a 6 chord, sorry, a 6 meaning a first inversion chord. So this is a 4 chord and this is a 2 chord. So a 4 going to a 6. So let's put our Roman numerals in here. Okay, and that will be a minor 4. And this is going to be a diminished 6, or you could also do a 6/5 if you wanted. So again, there are options here, and I'll make that choice when I complete this for the handout, for the completed handout. Okay, so in this instance, this 5-voice cadence has cadential 6/4 plus 2 pre-cadential chords, so predominant chords, cadential predominance here. Okay, and I'll fill in the inner voices and that'll be available on the handout. Sorry this is so long. It's a little bit harder for me to be quick in videos than in class, but hopefully this is comprehensive and makes sense. Email me if you have any questions, and we'll do full 3 and 4 beat cadences where we have all sorts of different choices in class on Monday, November, what is that going to be? 15th. So that's the next time I'll see you in class. All right. See you soon.